For over 40 years, the Sundance Film Festival has been held on the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Shoshone, Paiute, Goju, and Ute tribal nations. We do land acknowledgements to recognize the traditional stewards of this land and our 500 years of resistance to ongoing colonialism. But can we acknowledge the land without listening to the land? Take a moment to really listen. From the Ute to the Wet'suwet'en, from the Anishinaabe to the Kingdom of Hawaii, indigenous nations all over the world understand that the land does not belong to us. We belong to the land. And we continue to fight for her. Let this land acknowledgement move you beyond symbolic recognition. Let it be your call to action. Support indigenous resistance. Join us in the fight to protect our mother, for our human and non-human kin, for the next 7 generations.
Hi everyone, welcome to the 2022 Sundance Film Festival Daily Artist Meetups, a daily opportunity to learn from and break bread with other members of our artist community from the class of 22 and beyond. If you need special accessibility accommodations during this or any other festival event, please give us a call at 435-776-7790. Again, that is 435-776-7790, or email us at accessibility@sundance.org, and we'll do anything in our capacity to support you. My name is Aviram Brizuela. I go by Avi, and I'm the director of Sundance's Artist Community. I'm leading the daily artist meetups alongside a wonderful team of friends and colleagues, including Kieran Medina, providing technical support, and Andre Pochon, helping us moderate the chat. I also want to thank Carrie Aiken and Sharika Dimeta for providing ASL interpretation. I am a biracial Latino man from Venezuela. I'm about 6'1", medium complexity. I'm wearing a light shirt, a blue jacket, a pair of glasses, and the same brown hat I've been wearing for this, last 16 years, I think? Yeah, every day in a row, a long time. I'm joining today from our offices in Los Angeles, California, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome all of you into our wonderful artist community. I loved the session yesterday, and I'm thrilled to see so many of you coming back to build community. If this is your first time, however, joining one of the daily artist meetups, I hope you enjoyed the ride and bring your whole self into the conversation. In about 30 minutes or so, we're going to be having an opportunity to connect with other artists from all over the world, exchange ideas, and most importantly, build community. But before we do any of that, I have the immense privilege of welcoming the mastermind behind Sundance's artist programs, the one and only Michelle Satter, alongside 4 incredible filmmakers from the 22 Sundance Film Festival official selection. So please welcome Francisca Alegria, writer-director of The Cow Who Sang a Song into the Future, Tom Dercourt, producer of The Cow Who Sang a Song into the Future, Adama Ibo, writer and director of Hung for Jesus, Save Your Soul, Adane Ibo, producer of Hung for Jesus, Save Your Soul, and of course, Michelle Satter, founding senior director of artist programs at the Sundance Institute. It is such a pleasure to have you all here. How are you all doing?
You're good.
Doing great. Yep. Glad to be here.
Nice. Great to have you all. Okay, so Michelle, the floor is yours. I'm going to come off camera and I'm going to see you all in a little bit.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Abe. You do a terrific job with these meetups, and I'm so glad that we have an audience joining us. So I have to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. My pronouns are she, her. My descriptive is I'm wearing a kind of blue swirl sweater. I am light complexion. I've got dark glasses on. I have a green wall in back of me and a painting of the California coastline, which I love, one of my favorites. So I am so excited to lead this conversation, as the Future Film Program had the privilege of supporting both Adama and Adani on their first feature, Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul, premiering tomorrow. Be there for that. And Francisca on The Cow, who sang a song Into the Future. And these were filmmakers that we supported at our labs. And The Cow, the long title, but I love the title, and there's a reason for the title, is also premiering tomorrow at the festival. So I hope you'll be there. And we're also thrilled to welcome Tom, who came on board working with Fran as the producer. So welcome, everyone. So here's our topic, which is the leap from a short to feature. And here's what I want to say just by introduction. It can happen quickly, but it depends on how you define quickly. But more often, it's a longer and a more challenging process, even if you have momentum and success coming out of a festival. And I'm excited to talk about the journey. It is absolutely a journey with all of you who are with me today, as these films, and I love these films that these directors have made and these producers have made. We're very connected to their shorts, to the stories that they wanted to tell as a first feature. And just want to say to our audience is thanks so much for being here, and please engage in the conversation we're having using the chat. And then in about half an hour, you'll get to be part of the breakout sessions. So again, welcome. So let's get started. So with a first feature, but with any art that you're working on, it starts with an idea, an image, a spark, something that is, generated that makes you want to just tell this story and spend the time that it's going to take to make a film. So I wanted to talk about that spark for both of our filmmakers who are here, and also to talk about the, starting with the writing and developing of a feature script. It's very different than writing a short. And I want to talk about that process with you. And the process for you of developing that script when you were ready to share with your potential collaborators and financiers. What were the big differences for you in that process? So starting with Genesis, spark, and then going into that writing process, because it starts there. So I'm going to ask Adama to start us off.
Sure, yeah. I'm Adama Igbo. I am a Black woman wearing a head wrap, gold chains, and gold hoop earrings. I'm with my identical twin sister, Adana Igbo, who has similar features. And the spark, I think I would say that the spark was sort of the beginning of my disillusionment with my personal faith with organized religion, and then seeing how that disillusionment sort of like seesawed between wanting to completely divorce myself from it and then wanting to still be attached to it, because church culture is borderline and it's inextricable from Black culture, and so it was hard to completely let it go. And so I think that was the genesis and the spark for me, is sort of reconciling my own faith and the sort of the absurdities and awfulness that can come along with organized religion.
Yep. And then the spark. That was the spark, sorry, the writing process.
Oh, man, I guess unorthodox and unorganized would be my writing process. I just don't.
Can confirm.
My producer and sister can confirm. I don't know. Writing, the process was the most difficult part of the process, I think, was figuring out what aspects of the short I would still incorporate into the feature, or if those had a place at all in the film. And I very quickly realized that the short was the climax of the feature. And so I had to sort of write around the climax of the entire story.
How long did it take you?
Oh,
Ready?
I write fairly quickly. It was definitely less than a year for the first draft. And there were many,
all of that
many
happened.
rewrites.
All that was
after.
2019.
All of it, I think, happened within 2019.
Yeah. Maybe 2018, 2019.
2018 going into 2019.
And did you ever do a reading of the script before you sent it out? Listen to actors read it aloud, or you were just like, okay, it's at some point you do have to let go and put it out into the world and see how the world reacts to it. But was there anything else in your process that you want to share of writing?
Oh, we did have a reading of it. We did IFP week.
Oh, that's right.
Independent film week and in New York, and I think now it's called the Gotham.
Yeah.
It was my first time hearing it out loud. I think we already had our producing partners by that point.
Yeah.
But we hadn't gotten the film finance. Definitely didn't have it casted. So it was very, very early stages, and hearing it out loud was transformative. I was like, okay, this could live.
Right. Yeah. It's just something to think about for all of you. Is there is, at any point during the process, there can be an opportunity to hear it aloud, hear it read by a company of actors. It can be a really critical step in development. So Fran, what was it like for you? And start with the genesis for you, and then taking your beautiful short to a feature film in writing.
Hello, everyone. My name is Francisca Alegría. I am a Chilean woman, 36 years old, Latino woman. So I guess brown skin. My background is sort of an impressionistic painting of a river that I don't know, because I am in a park city where no one is, but I still came because my parents were so excited and they had bought everything. So they suggested that why don't we come to Park City? So I'm here, and I'm wearing a pink shirt that my little sister borrowed to me, and yes, and I'm wearing some golden hoops, little hoops. So the spark, to me, it started with a sort of unfiltered image. I don't know how to call them besides that. And it was a speaking cow skull. I just wanted to write something, and I just kind of like instinctively went with the writing into my place of my childhood, which is my grandparents' farm in Chile. It's the place that I grew up in, that my inspirations come from. And when writing in a few pages in, I just wrote this cow skull in, and that spoke about death coming for a family that I hadn't yet written about. And so that's how it started. And then slowly, this was just for you to know, Michelle, this happened in 2011. So 10 years ago, that first spark. And it was, I just did like a vomit draft. My writing process for then, I had gone to like a very small festival in Argentina, and I was young, and I thought, films were just too huge to make. I didn't think I could make a film, because for me, films and as references were always like big United States films, I didn't know about independent filmmaking. And so I went to this festival and I saw a film that happened in nature, very similar to my world, and it was doable. I thought it was doable. So this was right before this cow skull started kind of like coming up. And so after that, my writing process was, I told myself, okay, I don't know how to write a script, so I'll just start in page 1 and not look back and not stop until I'm done. So it was like about 2 weeks of just like writing every day until I arrived to, I don't know what, page 80 something. And I said, okay, I think it's done. And of course, this, it made no sense. But this was kind of like my first push to keep writing. And And the first time, and this was many years later, because I workshopped the script, I went later to a postgraduate program for film where the script completely changed, and I started kind of like making a new film. And then many years later, I kept everything from that first draft away. I didn't look at it, and I started like a new process. And the first time that it was read out loud, it was at the Sundance Labs in 2017. And it was very important for me. Hearing the script out loud was, I think that for all of us directors and producers, it's like a magical moment where, you know, the actors come to life, and that was crucial. And in terms of the short, the seed for the feature came before the short, so many years ago. But what happened was with the short and the feature is that I kind of like inhabited the same space and world. So I have different characters. I didn't want to repeat myself in this case, but I somehow was always drawn to the same world, the same kind of characters. And so I feel that they both inhabit a universe that is the same, but different stories.
Similar to Francisca, the feature came before the short for me, and then I rewrote the feature to incorporate the short. I wrote it I was at UCLA as getting my MFA in directing, and I took a feature writing class. And so a very earlier, way worse draft of Honk for Jesus was written in that class. And my first year there, we had like guest speakers who were Damien Chazelle and Tom Cross from Whiplash. And they told us that, or Damien told us that he did a short as a proof of concept for the feature. And so I was like, oh, okay, then I think that'll be my thesis project, is that I'll make this feature, I'll make a short version of this feature that I've already written, and then have it as a proof of concept as I work on developing the feature further.
That's actually really helpful to our audience as well. I love that you're in Park City, Fran. I'm sorry that we're not there with you for that. I wanted to talk about, because we have the producers with us today, which is fantastic, and Sundance, values producers as much as we value the writers and directors. You are storytellers too. And so much a part of the process. So if you can talk about that collaboration that you had with your director. I mean, it's interesting as sisters, having that relationship, and of course Tom with Fran. How you got involved in the project, but as importantly, what you, as you made with these directors that leap, that journey from short to feature, what was really important for you, and what were those moments, those touch points that really grounded you in the making of these films. So, Tom, you want to talk first?
Yeah, with pleasure. So my name is Tom Dercourt. I'm a French producer. I'm currently in Switzerland in a very impersonal hotel room in a festival. And I wear a black suit and I got a beard and some glasses. So the first time I met Francisca, it was in Rotterdam at the Cinemart, where she was presenting the project with her producer at that time, who was Augusto Mate from the Giraffa film production. I was working with him on other projects, and he sent me the link of the short, and I was fascinated, and I really wanted to meet with Francisca. So I think that the first moment we met and we talked about cinema, picture, movies, is the real moment when you think and when you feel that something will be possible to do together. And I think we had a very good fit. And then Francisca went on other workshops and we kept going on developing the movie. I mean, she was developing the movie and we were following with my team. her writing, and little by little, it happened that for some mysterious reasons of the life of a film, I became the lead producer as a European film. So we had to transform it, and all over this grand process of film producing, film financing it with co-production and building a strange setup. We, I think, surrounded as much as we could Francisca to allow her, to make sure that her vision would be on screen. And as a producer, this is really what I want to do as much as I can. And maybe it's also because I'm a European producer, and where we have a trust and a thirst for the author's films, and leave the final cut to the directors, and we really want them to have the vision on screen, but of course to be the real partner to exchange on movies. So I think that this moment, watching the short, meeting with Francisca was absolutely the starting point of the great adventure of making the film.
Great. Thank you. And Donna.
So I produced the short version of Honk for Jesus Save Your Soul. And from there, I think we always knew we would do whatever it took to get the feature up and running. And so producerially, after the short was done and it ran across a couple of festivals, I guess I really pushed Adama to be writing the feature. I was like, okay, the short's getting traction. Let's get going on the feature. Like, let's make this real, so that if people say, we love the short so much, what else are we working on? We would have the feature version of the script ready to go. And so that was really my role in getting the feature going as much as possible. But then I also I'm a producer generally, but I really, really love creative producing. And so I guess I read every single draft of that script, like every single draft, and gave comprehensive notes on the script. Even when I was not a full-time creative, I was reading the script at my lawyer job and typing up notes and making sure that, the script was in good enough shape to submit to the Sundance Labs. And I think that was another role I had. I was very insistent on trying to put the script out there any way we could. And so I pushed for applying to the Sundance Labs, and luckily we got labs in. And other labs, all the labs. A lot of deadlines, yes, that I had to meet. I'm a big deadline person. But yeah, so I was really insistent on that. And then once we did the Sundance Labs is when we met our other producing partners, 59%, which is Daniel Kaluuya's production company with Rowan Riley and Amanda Critchlow. And I knew producerially, because this would be my first feature, that I wanted to have producing partners who had done this before. And so I made that decision. I think we knew having Daniel Kaluuya's name would be helpful, but I really wanted partners who had feature producing experience, mm-hmm. and experience with getting financing. That was integral for me. So I know Adama was really big on me being the lead producer, and I definitely was, but I definitely wanted producing partners who could kind of round out where I was lacking in the skill set experience-wise.
Great. So we don't have a lot of time to go deeply on this question, because I know we could spend hours, but I would love to know from both of our directors and also producers to jump in. You have a script ready to go. It's now the prep process, of course, trying to find the money for the film, but you talked a little bit about that, but the prep process and the actual production process. Now you're making these films at a very difficult time. in the world. You know, we're deep into a pandemic, but you persevered. I mean, this is stamina to get, to get through this process for sure. But talk about several, sort of top line lessons that you learn that you would want every other director who's making their first feature, to at least know from your point of view. Just some, some of those learnings that you're going to also bring to all the next films that you make. So just do you want to start?
Sorry, we missed that, Michelle. Who's starting?
I'm asking you.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, top line, I think I would say, like, if your gut is telling you something specific about what you're making or knowing your movie, then then ride with it. There were a few times on set where I was getting a lot of feedback on very specific things, on very specific performances. And, while taking notes is very constructive, if it's something that's the complete antithesis to what you are working for, or if you're just like, I know what these characters are, I know what they're supposed to be and how they're supposed to live, then ride on that. I think as a first-time feature filmmaker, it's very tempting to give in to the powers that seem like they have more experience than you, or like know this industry better than you, but they don't know your story and your characters better than you. And, again, while it's important to be extremely collaborative, there are points where it's like, these are mine. Like, they were born from me. They were born from my brain and my love and my creativity. And you have to breathe that life into them as a director. And so don't let anyone shorten the breath.
Yeah, I love that. Such important advice for everyone. Yeah, for you, Francisca.
I definitely second that. I think that part of that first feature is to have the freedom to explore, and I think that to me it was very important that my producers were supportive of that. And I also want to say that in my experience with Tom, the fact that he had so much more experience and that he had done many, not only co-productions, so he had experience there, but as a creative producer, he had many other very successful films. It gave a lot of confidence. But and I think that this is something that as directors, we appreciate a lot, for them to support you, support the vision, and give you the freedom at the same time. For me, that's essential. And I would say something maybe like a bit more specific or technical that happened to me is that in the short film, because of course of the format is shorter, like I had, for example, like shot listed, the whole short. And so I knew exactly, and I was very economical to shoot because of time constraints and because of the budget and all that, but also because as the way that I wanted to work. And when I went, like when I shot the feature, and I started receiving feedback from my editor, who was also at the same program that I was, and she was actually a professor of mine in Chile. And she was like, Fran, if you can, shoot a bit more, because what if in the edit room you want to change? And I was like, yeah, of course, this, they've taught you this many times, but when you're shooting, sometimes you kind of like go with a more, specific idea of the tone and the style. And I found that advice very helpful, because in shorts, you have no second to lose everything, so the shorts are so loaded with like information, and each shot is like, but in feature films, in my experience, I needed breathing time. I needed like a lot more time for like this, let's say like germane or main scenes to kind of like connect and have their own pace. And so I think that there was that breathing was found through allowing myself more free space while I was directing on set, things that were not planned. Maybe what if the camera, just like goes into these trees, and then that worked as, for between two scenes, for example, that I had no idea, it wasn't in the script, but in the edit, that breathing room was so helpful.
Great. I want to get into the post process for a moment and briefly to talk about the post process leading into submitting to Sundance. And it's, of course, a much longer process, and it can be a thrilling process, but I think also met with many challenges, especially when you see the first rough assembly of a film and you wonder, where is my film? And how will I get there in terms of shaping it into the, into the feature and really the beautiful promise of each of these films. So if you can talk about that post process for you, and both director and producer, and getting ready for Sundance, and what that felt like to you, and any specific learnings along the way to share. So Adama and Adana, if you want to start.
Yeah, I felt like our post process wasn't long at all, or maybe not long enough. We were moving at a breakneck speed. I think we wrapped our film in July, and during production on the film, I found out that I was going to be able to direct an episode of Atlanta season 4. And so I wasn't able to jump right into post. I had to go back into pre-production and production on this episode of television. And so by the time I started editing the film, it was like September, August. It was August, and we submitted in October, and so we were moving. Literally, there was not one day off. Nah, including weekends. And so that process I felt like was like very rapid. But I think something I learned during the post process was, I was a writer before I was a director, and I love to write. And so I'm very into my scripts. But I learned in a way to let it go, because the footage is now your new script. What you have is now your new script. And really allowing myself to just like melt or lean into that was extremely helpful, because it changed a lot. The opening of the film as it lives now is not the opening I wrote at all. And I think it's better for that. I think it's more interesting. I think it captures the tone in a better way. But I had to really just like let myself, and we were very close with our editor. And so talk to her about it. I was like, what happens if I just like kind of rewrite this myself with the footage? And basically what I did was go through the dailies, and I was like, this take from this scene at this timestamp, and then wrote how that fed into this take from this scene with this timestamp. And so I just used the footage that I had to sort of rewrite the movie. And that was definitely a bit of a curve for me, but I loved it. Editing now to me feels pretty similar to writing. Yeah, editing is fun, but I will say it can be extremely grueling. So it's important, I think, to pick the right editor. Yeah, we're so tight with our editor now, and we really took a long time to find the right one. It was very important for us to find an editor who had drama experience, but also comedy, because ours is a dark comedy and a satire. And it's hard to be funny, like write funny, but it's also hard to cut footage in a funny way, in a way that actually lands for audiences. So that's extremely important, is finding someone who has the skill set that'll be lent well to the tone of your film. But also for us, it was extremely important to find someone who has a similar temperament for us, because we're very kind of like chill and laid back. And it was important for us, for someone who we were working with literally 7 days a week, to have someone who we gelled with and meshed with. And so take the time to find the right editor. Yeah. It can make him or break your film. We found her though. Stacey Moon, she's dope. She's dope.
Great. Thank you on that. Yeah, I believe an editor is worth their weight in gold and more, for sure. Fran and Tom, your post-process?
I can start, and then I'll let Tom, because it was a very interesting and unique for me post-process. First, just like I wanted to add before, if it's helpful for people, I had two co-writers in the end in COW because it was such a long process. One of them wrote with me for 3 years, and that's like a whole amazing experience for me, co-writing. So just like if it sparks a topic later. But for me, yeah, the edit was the same. I love to get rid of my own ideas. It's kind of like I find a pleasure in that. So the edit process, I also have a female editor who's very bold. So she was like, let's cut this. So we also rewrote a lot in the film, and some things were not even as a writer, but as a director, when you shot something that was meant to go somewhere and like the character was looking like this, but then the editor is like, no, let's just put her here, you know, towards the end. And you're like, but you know, what if people notice? And it was a great reminder for me, the edit process, that it's all about emotion. If the emotion is landing, you know, and it's taking you into a journey, the rest will follow, you know, it doesn't matter. So that was a really good advice. And then I'll let Tom talk about the rest, because after we edit in Chile, I traveled to France to do the whole other part of the process, because, you know, our film was mostly economically backed by France. So it was a new experience for me. Tom, you should speak.
Yeah, sure. Actually, as I explained before, this is a complicated co-production setup with Alejandra Garcia in Chile, which was handling the shooting. And we had also some US partners, Casey Bader, Sri Harisate in the US, who were at the same time our executive producers and looking for some more money, but also and participated in Catalyst program. But also very much artistically involved. And we had also in Germany, Viola Fugen from the Match Factory production, and each of us had to have some share in the work of the movie. So the edit was done in Chile, and while we were editing the movie, we also identified, and Francisca asked for 2 or 3 extra days for filming more nature. And in the movie, there are a lot of VFX. So we had to make the VFX and everything but the editing on the editing room was made in a lab in France and another VFX facility in France too. So we had to have a very good connection and discussions. And then also for Francisca to come for 2 full months in Paris for making the VFX, the music, the lab, everything. So the integration of the whole post-production was made there, and in a lot of discussions to go from the producers, and the surrounding of the producers was really good. So when Adani talked about her partners and producers, that when you said that you were keeping the lead producing and the creative producing and getting surrounded by a producer maybe more experienced, but I think the good fit is very important. And to finish with the post process and what led to the Sundance submission, because of course we have the deadline of the submission, and we were super excited about presenting the film and hoping that you would love it. This is also a good goal, and this is also a good target. So you know that the film is unfinished, and suddenly you have to rush to have a very good planning in mind in case of it's getting selected. By chance you picked it, but it's true that having a festival, and this one particularly in mind, was also a good stress, push for us and for Francisca, I think, to complete the movie.
All right, well, we have run out of time, and I have one more question before I hand it back to Avi, which is, you're both premiering your films tomorrow. You know, someone said the other day, and I've always felt this, a film isn't finished until it reaches its audience, until there's, you know, that kind of audience engagement. We're not in person. There's a huge, I mean, the audience has been terrific and engaged through our online festival. What is your hope for the film. And how nervous are you going to this experience? Fran, you want to just quickly just tell us how.
I am very nervous, of course, but it makes me very happy. I think that this is my favorite moment to share the film, and my hope is that the audience can kind of like connect in a non-rational way with the film, that they really emerge and hopefully get into this just through their sensations and emotions and let go. And yeah, I think that this is why we do it. I think that whoever creates something from super inside and then you put it out in the world, it's an act of sharing. And I think that, so I'm nervous, but so happy that this part is coming.
Yeah, and for you, Dama, have the last word here.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mostly just hope that people like dig it and it resonates with people. It's highly specific and about a very specific culture and subculture, but I hope that it can become like Black canon almost. Like, this is for the streets. Like I feel like, there hasn't been lately a ton of Black television and film that isn't about like Black trauma. And this is, while I think it is saying something very important, it's not, you should have fun with it, and while also thinking. And so I just hope that it resonates with people and it makes people start to question things more. That's the most important to me, is that like people are encouraged to question, because I feel like if you don't question, then like power goes unchecked, and that's when we get the most awful stuff.
Yeah, and I think we're not really nervous. We're not really nervous people.
I know we grew up jocks and then also performers. Like, we play musical instruments, and so I think the nerves were shaken out of us by our mother.
Yeah, we're but we are excited for people to see it. We're ready to start a conversation.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. I mean, to me, making films, putting them out in the world is an act of love. And thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing so honestly about your process. And I'm going to bring Abby back on, and we'll get into our breakout groups.
Wow. I mean, thank you so much, Michelle.